Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. I just want to give you a reminder that the Cyber 2025 sale is on over on Etsy. Make sure you use promo code Cyber25 and you'll get 37% off of your order. Remember, you just go to lisacrafts.etsy.com to get your big discount. So, y'all, we're going to talk about something that the Trump administration has done. Nursing is no longer a professional degree. And there's many people that feel like, they were distracted by the Epstein file and didn't see this coming, but actually this was in Project 2025. It's one of many professions that are no longer professional degree, and teachers is also part of that. And you're going to see a whole list of these professions as the videos we get into the videos. So Donald Trump and a bunch of very older white people came up with this decision. It was no young people with a voice around them. All elderly white people came up with this. And, of course, there's even doctors that are speaking out saying they don't agree with this at all. But most of the professions that they picked were ones that a lot of women dominated. And you know how it is. They want their women back in the home bearing babies. And their women don't want to have their babies. They got a big problem on their hand because how do you turn your birth rate around and your women don't want your brats? They don't want them babies. These women, they want to get their education, get out of school, and they want to earn some big money. And that's what they have been into for the last several decades. These women want to make big bucks. They are not thinking about laying around with a house full of babies. And that's what these men want because they see their birth rate is slipping. And I think this is another attempt to try to push these women into being at home and bearing babies. And, they're going to resist all the way. I can't tell you how many videos I have watched over the years of white women just coming straight out saying, I do not want children, or I can't afford to have children. I got my career. I look, I'm just going to build my career. They're not thinking about no babies. They ain't thinking about no babies. So I think that's what this is. And I think it's going to be a big flop. It really, truly is. But a lot of nurses are not happy. They're not happy at all. And to be honest with you, I do. If I'm in the hospital, I want a nurse with a professional degree. I want a nurse that have clinical training, and know what they're doing. So now, it's not just them, it's also CNAs, you don't need to be certified. It's a lot of stuff going on. And to be honest with you, I don't expect somebody old like Donald Trump to care about the same things that we care about. And Donald Trump, quite frankly, these days sound like a damn broken record. It's like every time that man is on TV, the economy is great, the prices are going down, everything is looking great. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. And I guess he think if he keeps repeating this to us, we're gonna believe it. Nobody's believing it. Nobody's believing it. But every time I see Donald Trump now, that's all he's talking about. How great the economy is, and this economy is not great. Oh, what are you gonna do? All right, y'all, let me share my screen so we can get started. Okay. Yep. Please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you. Well, no. I mean, look how swollen his ankles are. I doubt if he can even walk through a grocery store. Like, really walk through and do some big shopping. He probably wouldn't be able to handle it with them old big cankles he got. All right. Thank you, everybody.
I don't know. Nursing degrees and CRNA was real professional before y'all got on this app talking about women with extensions, eyelashes, and weaves and how it was unprofessional in the workplace. What? They didn't just stop unprofessional black women from getting degrees. No, the education department said all you motherfuckers doesn't matter. Nursing degrees are no longer considered professional degrees, and a lot of people don't understand why that matters. It's not because of a piece of paper. It's literally because of the way people are able to afford nursing degrees, CRNA, nurse practitioner degrees, federal loans, student loans. And if they're not considered a federal degree, it's going to cap the amount of loans you are able to receive annually and like total above all. And it's not enough to get the degree. So, guess what? If you're not rich and you don't have good credit to afford privatized loans, you're not getting the degree because women's education to this administration is a threat because they're not at home making babies. And the fact that women don't understand that we're all fucked. I mean, black women are double fucked, but we are all included in this fucked up paradigm. And I think it's time to fucking stop. And if y'all would have never got on this app saying that, oh, eyelashes and your eyebrows and your weave is so unprofessional at work, maybe we would still have a professional grade degree. Y'all tried to gatekeep, and you gatekeeped our ass all the way back to not being able to afford it at all, which is great because we know some people will riff off of this and be able to get privatized loans. But this is a direct attack on women and minorities. And this is going to crash healthcare. Places like the Midwest Express clinics that are run by only nurse practitioners, that's over with. So now, if you don't have health insurance because you can't afford it, you're just not going to get any help, especially with OB. So there is.
There's a quiet policy change making its way through American education, and it's stirring up a huge controversy, especially for people like teachers and nurses. It's a move that has some massive consequences, and today we're going to unpack exactly what it is, why it's happening, and what it could mean for some of our most vital careers. It really all starts with this one single statement. Just imagine you work for years, you pour everything into getting your degree, and then someone tells you it's suddenly being reclassified. This isn't just about changing a word on a piece of paper. This is a move that could literally reshape entire fields. So, what is actually going on here? Okay, first things first, let's just get our heads around the policy itself. We're calling it the professional downgrade. It's an official reclassification happening at the federal level, and its impact really starts with who it affects. And just look at this list. We are talking about teachers, nurses, physical therapists, physician assistants, architects, accountants, social workers. I mean, these are the absolute bedrock professions of our communities. And under this new change, their degrees are being stripped of their professional status. So here's the most important part to get. This isn't about feelings or prestige. A professional degree reclassification is basically a bureaucratic lever. When the government decides to flip this switch, it sets off a whole chain reaction that directly hits how these professionals get educated and, crucially, how their education gets funded. And that, well, that leads to some immediate fallout. Which brings us to the second huge impact. What could turn into a mass exodus of these programs from our traditional universities? Because the second a degree loses its professional status, the whole financial foundation for that program just starts to crumble. And this shows the domino effect perfectly. First, the status gets changed. Right after that, the amount of federal loan money that students in these programs can get drops. We're talking by as much as 60 or 70%. That means universities suddenly lose a massive chunk of funding and they just can't afford to run these expensive programs anymore. So, what's the final domino to fall? The programs have to move somewhere else. And that somewhere else is technical and vocational schools. The whole model shifts to cheaper, faster, skills only training. So think less 4-year degree, more fast track certificate. This means no more general ed requirements, no history, no science core, none of that broad academic foundation. Just the practical, hands on skills you need to do the job. Now, before we dig into why this is all happening, it's really important to note that this model isn't coming out of nowhere. Actually, for a lot of other developed countries, this is just how things are done. This slide just lays it out perfectly. On the one side, you've got the classic US university model. It's broad, it's academic, it takes longer, and man, is it expensive. Then on the other side, you have the model they use in places like Germany and Switzerland. It's all skills, it's shorter, it's cheaper, and it's strictly about getting you ready for a job. The policy change we're talking about is a deliberate pivot from the left side of this slide over to the right. Which, of course, brings us to the real question here. If the university model has been the American standard for so long, why would you orchestrate such a huge disruptive shift right now? Well, the answer, as it so often does, really comes down to money. Specifically, it comes down to a number so big, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. The real engine driving this whole policy change is the gigantic, completely unsustainable crisis of student loan debt here in the United States. $1.7 trillion. That is the mountain of student debt that Americans are buried under right now. To put that in perspective, about 1 out of every 4 borrowers is in default. The system is just fundamentally broken, and this policy change is a direct shot at trying to fix the root cause of that number. So how in the world did we get here? Well, before 1965, college was way cheaper because banks were actually careful about who they loaned money to. But then in 65, the federal government stepped in and started guaranteeing student loans. That took all the risk away from the lenders. All of a sudden, any 18-year-old could get a massive loan. And the universities realized, hey, we can charge whatever we want because this government-backed money is never going to run out. And the result of that, a complete explosion in cost. With students able to borrow almost unlimited amounts of cash, colleges could charge almost unlimited amounts. Between 1980 and 2020, tuition shot up by 1,200%. That's not a typo. It grew faster than inflation, faster than wages, and even faster than the crazy cost of healthcare. So here's the absolute heart of the issue. The loan system itself created the crisis. When the money is guaranteed and there's no limit, there is zero incentive for universities to keep their spending in check. And that's how we ended up with bloated administrative budgets and luxury campuses, all of it paid for with student debt. This new policy is basically an attempt to finally turn off that fire hose of money. So when you put all of these pieces together, you start to see that this isn't just about trying to solve a debt problem. No, this is a fundamental redesign of what education and being a professional even mean in America. And that's the real takeaway here. This policy is completely intentional. It is a calculated move designed to shift entire career paths out of the expensive university system and into a cheaper vocational track. This is a deep structural change to the American workforce, plain and simple. And this is exactly why people are so worried about that one little word, professional. Because this shift could alter everything: the prestige of these jobs, how much they pay, the kind of person who even decides to go into these fields, and the entire educational pipeline for critical sectors like healthcare and teaching. So, in the end, it really leaves us with this one big provocative question. Is this just a painful but necessary fix for a higher education system that has become totally unsustainably expensive? Or is this the beginning of the end for what we've always thought of as the American professional class? That's the real story here. And we are just now starting to see how it's all going to unfold.
Can you imagine going to school for years and then your degree is suddenly just wiped out of the list of professional options and you lose your financial aid? So, did you know that the Department of Education under Project 2025 in the Trump administration has just provided a list of careers that are no longer considered professional degrees? So, I would like to know if any of these fall in your career path. So let's see, we have nurse practitioners, epidemiologists, social workers, physical therapists and occupational therapists, teachers, audiologists, physician assistants, and the list goes on. So I am noticing something here. These are all female dominated industries. How convenient. So all of these things were a part of the RISE committee in the proposal to enhance the big beautiful bill and eliminate overuse of financial aid in student education. So I got to question all of the MAGAs who have are aspiring to be in any of these professions. Is this what you voted for? Did you read Project 2025 before you voted or before someone voted for you? So whoever told you how to vote, are they going to pay your bills? Hmm. Any regrets? Let's talk about it.
It is all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Nursing is no longer considered a professional degree. When I heard that, I kind of felt it, kind of a gut punch to my pride. What do you mean we aren't professionals? Like, do you remember 5 years ago when businesses, restaurants, stores were shut down? Everyone had to stay home, and like we still had to go be frontline workers. What do you mean we're not professionals? It really bothered me because from what I was seeing online and hearing is like, this is coming from the Trump administration. That really bothered me because I'm someone, I don't mean to ruffle feathers, but I'm someone who voted for Trump and I stand by that decision. So I really felt like I was almost being backstabbed. And then I did my own research. Just like everything else online, both sides, the left and the right, this was a big propaganda thing. What this really means is that the Department of Education, not Trump himself, like everyone on Facebook was saying, Department of Education deemed that nursing was to be taken off a certain list of like professional degrees. So for us nurses, what does that do? How does that affect us? And the answer is it doesn't. Literally does nothing. Our license doesn't change, our pay doesn't change, our scope doesn't change, the way people view us doesn't change, nothing. Literally nothing. Emotionally, yeah, I get it. Like I said earlier, it is kind of like a gut punch, but it doesn't change anything. The only thing this changes whatsoever is the amount of student loans someone can take out. Please fact check me because I'm not a professional. This is just my understanding based off my own research. Prior to this taking place, your aggregate and your annual max for student loans was $250,000. Once this goes into place, your annual limit will be like $21,000 or something like that. Then the aggregate max will be $100,000. That is the only thing that changes with nursing no longer being considered professional, which is just a play on words. And I know some people are going to be upset about that and say things like, well, then people can't even go to nursing school. I don't agree with that. If you followed me on here for any time at all, you've heard me talk about multiple times how nursing school at community colleges is the best decision you can ever make in your entire life. Get your 2-year nursing degree, you start working for a hospital, and then that hospital will help you pay for your further education. I don't mean to be like disrespectful or anything, but I'm going to speak from the heart. If you're going to nursing school just to become an RN, whether that's an associate's, bachelor's, or a master's degree, and you're paying anywhere over $30,000, that is idiotic. If you are a registered nurse, ADN, BSN, MSN, 90% of the time, you are going to be making the same exact amount of money, regardless of your degree. I'm not talking about advanced practice. Obviously, there's a pay increase for that. Where you go to school makes no difference. No difference. And anyone that tells you it does is a liar. I got my nursing degree at a community college a lot of people don't even know exists. And I work with people that got their nursing degrees from the University of Illinois. I got hired on as a new grad the exact same time these people got hired on as new grads. In 2019, guess how much I started out at? $2,790. Did they start out at? $2,790. How much student debt did they have? A lot. How much did I have? Zero. Don't go to these stupid schools. The whole point of this is to try to combat the student loan crisis in America right now. According to Q1 in 2025, the total student loan balance in America is $1.63 trillion. The main contributing factor to this is because these colleges know that the government is just going to dish out essentially as much money as you want. So they jack up their tuition prices. It's a big spiral takes place. If you look at statistics over the last 30 years, the average increase in salary has been less than 1% a year. I think over the last 30 years, an average of like 17% or something like that. Now, when you look at tuition rates, mind-boggling. Tuition rates over the last 30 years have increased somewhere around 260%. Again, it's because they know the government will just hand out money, and so they know there's disposable money, and so they just raise their rates because they know they're going to get the money. And that is the whole point of this nursing is no longer professional bogus. It's a long-term plan to eventually bring down tuition rates because they understand if people don't have this just unlimited amount of money, then there'll be less people going to college, which is not the goal, but they want these colleges to see like, hey, these people can't afford this, and so they bring their prices down. It's a short-term pain for a long-term improvement, which I know isn't glamorous, but both sides use this analogy. This is kind of the right's version of it, and the left has their version too, raising taxes, that sort of thing. Bottom line is no one is saying that nurses aren't professional. It's just not the case.
Every few months, someone online decides they're going to explain why nursing supposedly isn't a professional degree. And this week's contestant is a phlebotomist, I believe, named Taniqua on TikTok, who somehow convinced herself that nurses aren't considered professionals because they go to the club on their off days. So let me be very clear. First, shame on you for that video, and you should take it down. Secondly, you need to stay in your lane. Nobody is out here bashing phlebotomists. We are a team. So don't hop online and disrespect an entire profession you've never trained for. Nothing about nursing is handed to us, as she eloquently states. We earn the degree. We earn the right to sit for the NCLEX. We earn every board certification and every competency check. We maintain continuing education, renew our licenses every 2 to 4 years, depending on the state, and we do it while carrying legal liability, moral responsibility, and clinical decision-making that is light years beyond whatever narrative you're pushing for attention. And as for what nurses do on their personal time, that's none of your concern. We are mothers, fathers, spouses, caregivers, human beings with actual lives. If I go out with my husband, I'm going to dress up, enjoy myself, or spend time with my family. That doesn't erase the decades plus of clinical experience, autonomy, and education I bring to my patients. Professionalism is defined by the quality of your work, your ethics, and how you treat people, not whether you went dancing on a Saturday night. So let me say it one more time, because clearly I want to make sure you hear me. Do not ever disrespect the nursing profession. Do not ever downplay the rigor, the sacrifice, or the responsibility that comes with these licenses. And if you are not a nurse, do not speak on nursing like you are.
Since my nursing degree will not be a professional degree, don't fucking come to me talking about my Facebook page, my TikTok page. Oh, it's not professional. It's not this, that, and third. Bitch, I don't need to be professional no more. This is not a professional degree. You will not get no professionalism from me, especially not on the motherfucking internet. I don't want to hear you represent the company. You represent the school. It's not a professional degree. This is McDonald's at this point, bitch. I'm flipping patties.
So the Department of Education announced that nursing is no longer considered a professional degree, which is kind of ironic considering that the people who are making these decisions are old people who are soon to be going to be screaming for their nurse to change the bedpan. But I digress. And as someone who's a nurse, I want to go over some things that make nursing very unprofessional, because it makes a lot of sense. Number one, as nurses, we save lives, and that is so overrated. Like, who cares anymore that you dedicate your entire career to saving people's lives? It's not like if we all quit our jobs, the entire healthcare system wouldn't collapse on itself, because it definitely would. And number two, we don't just save people's lives, we keep people alive. But I saw on the list that they consider chiropractics professional, but not nursing. So honestly, in the ICU, just fire all of those ICU nurses. They're just a waste of money. Just put chiropractors in there and just have them adjust every patient. And then all of a sudden, I bet they'll get better patient outcomes than whatever we could do, you know?
Nursing is not the only program that they reclassified and no longer call it a professional degree. Here's a list right here: nursing, physician assistants, physical therapists, audiologists, architects, accountants, educators, social workers. The United States Department of Education under the Trump administration reclassified these degrees and no longer considered them professional because they no longer want to cover them under federal student loans. So, what does this mean? It does not mean that you can no longer pursue these professions. It means the federal government is not trying to pay for them anymore. So only the people that are trust fund kids or come from family that planned and saved for college would be able to take these programs because they're going to have to pay for it out of pocket. Means any students that's pursuing the degrees that we mentioned before, they will no longer have access to higher federal loan limits, which were previously available to them. They will also be excluded from specific loan forgiveness programs, and these changes will create obstacles for those who cannot afford to pay for these professional degrees on their own out of pocket. A damn shame. But don't get discouraged and don't say, oh, I'm changing my major. Because remember, everything can be reversed and changed, especially when he's no longer president.
So tell me you want to crash the U.S. healthcare system without telling me you want to crash the U.S. healthcare system. So the U.S. Department of Education has proposed new rules that could reclassify graduate nursing degrees, like nurse practitioners, as non-professional programs. This change would significantly limit federal student loan access for graduate nursing programs by capping the annual loan amounts at a lower level than is currently allowed for other professional degrees like MDs and so forth. So why would they do this? Let's think about this for a minute. Let's look at Project 2025. Nursing is a female-dominated profession. Nurse practitioners, DNPs, and advanced nursing degrees are overwhelmingly filled by women, about 85%, according to current data. Any policy change that limits access to advanced degrees or reduced pathways for professional advancement disproportionately impacts women, and they're going to frame it as budgetary reasons. A rule doesn't have to explicitly target women for it to functionally suppress female professional mobility. Project 2025 has openly stated goals like this. They want to return to traditional family structures, encouraging women to prioritize motherhood and baby making. They want to discourage dual income households that rely on government-supported childcare. These motives aren't hidden. These are written in their public documents, right? And advanced nursing degrees give women a high level of autonomy, a higher earning capacity, and leadership roles. And that's the opposite of what traditional ideology in Project 2025 wants. Project 2025 has also repeatedly attacked fields dominated by women. Think about it. Education, 76% women. They want to eliminate the Department of Education, remove credentialing, remove federal loan protection, reduce academic research opportunities for women. Nursing and healthcare. They want to shrink the federal support for DNP and NP programs. They want to re-elevate the physician hierarchy because that's more dominated by men. They want to eliminate diversity, equity, and gender-focused health programs. Social work. The nonprofit sector, 82% dominated by women. They want to cut federal block grants, restrict the Title X, shrink the public sector jobs, and eliminate reproductive health programs. This paints a consistent ideological picture to weaken female-dominated professions by reducing federal support and classification protections. Advanced degrees allow women to earn $120,000 or more a year, operate independently in many states, run clinics, engage in primary care leadership roles, reduce physician dependency models, and rolling back this pushes women out of high autonomy roles and back into subordinate and lower paid positions. And this is a complete alignment with the Trump administration and Project 2025. Project 2025 specifically frames women working in high-skilled careers as anti-family. You know, they assert that America's decline is tied to the collapse of the traditional two-parent household and that the federal government should encourage women to return to the home and that public policy doesn't need to incentivize careerism over family life. So they're de-incentivizing women's professional advancement, and it's just been wrapped in bureaucratic bullshit. This move isn't just about budgetary problems and money, right? Federal loans are a drop in the bucket compared to other budget line items like defense and all that bullshit. They want to reduce women's high paying degrees, reduce access to women's high paying degrees, reinforce the hierarchical male led professional structures like with physicians and things like that, and engineers. They want to shrink the federal support for fields dominated by women. They want to push women back into domestic, low autonomy and subordinate roles. And they want to frame it all as a budgetary discipline or regulatory reform. Project 2025 doesn't have to say the words ban female advancement for them to ban female advancement, right? And decreasing the professional designations of nurse practitioners and nursing degrees will do exactly that. This will, if this happens, completely skyrocket healthcare costs because you're going to be more dependent on physician-led models. And it's going to decrease access to healthcare for millions of Americans because nurse practitioners are the only possible healthcare option for a lot of people in rural areas. You guys tell me what you think. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will talk to you later. Let me know if you think this is complete and utter garbage like I do.
The Department of Education deciding that advanced nursing degrees were not considered professional. I know there's been talk on here from the nursing side saying that the physicians must be the ones behind this because they don't want competition from APRNs and blah, 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 blah. I just want to say, honestly, I don't think that's true. I really doubt it, but hell, what do I know what happens behind closed doors? However, can we talk about the fact that maybe an APRN degree should not cost more than $100,000, and maybe medical school should not cost more than $200,000, and maybe this big beautiful bill and this decrease in tuition assistance is hopefully going to bring down the prices of these professional degrees and these graduate degrees because maybe we're being fleeced a little too much. Okay, because if you look at it, how cheap college used to be back in like the 70s and 80s, and then how when the government came in and started giving all these grants and all these loans, limited loans, but a whole lot of them to students, how tuition jumped up and how tuition has jumped up exponentially. I think it's gone up twice the average price, no, twice the rate of inflation over the past 30 years in colleges. And maybe we need to think about the fact that we're being fleeced. And maybe this is going to force these colleges to not realize, well, we don't have that much money coming in anymore. So maybe we need to bring our tuition back down. Maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. But to go as far as to think that the doctors are behind this and, devaluing the professional degree for nurses because we don't want competition. I don't know. I feel like that's far-fetched. But I don't think APRN degrees should cost six figures. I don't think medical degrees should cost more than $200,000. And the $20,000 of graduate degree loans that was there, that hasn't changed even before COVID. The aggregate went from $138,000 to $100,000 total for both undergraduate and graduate school. And like I said, I don't think it should cost more than that. And we're all being fleeced. Maybe we need to look at the potential positive that this could have downstream. That's just my take.
So the Trump administration with the big, beautiful bill has said that nurses are no longer professionals. Well, as a doctor, I clearly know they are. We can't function without them. But this is mainly for educational purposes for loans. And so this means that the loans that you would need for advanced degrees like nurse practitioner, PA, all of that, you won't qualify for those if you need more than the preset lower amount of loans. And this could cause some changes where now hospitals sponsor nurse practitioner degrees. So like you would get your nursing degree with these preset amount of loans, but since you're not eligible for loans for NPs, you would potentially go work for a hospital for years, get some experience, and they might sponsor your nurse practitioner degree. That potentially could be a good thing because it would give more experience between your bachelor's degree and going for the NP. But I really think it's going to hurt a lot of people. The other thing too is it doesn't actually make you not a professional. You still have your state boards and certifications and your licensure. This doesn't affect any of your licensing. All it does is reclassify you from an educational standpoint and how much loans you can take out. And it's kind of interesting how they targeted female, more feminine type of degrees, but yet theology is still a professional degree. So we'll see how this all rolls out, but I don't like it.
The Department of Education just said that nursing isn't a professional degree, but veterinary medicine is. Here's what's happening. Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill caps graduate loans and creates new borrowing limits. Students in, quote, professional degree programs can borrow up to $50,000 a year annual. The official list of professional degrees includes medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, law, veterinary medicine, chiropractic, and even theology. What's not on this list? Nurse practitioners, physician assistants, and physical therapists. The government's reason? Well, the education department says the definition has been consistent for decades, and this is about holding universities accountable and controlling tuition costs. But here's the reality. Graduate nursing students just lost access to higher loan limits and certain loan forgiveness programs. This is happening during a national nursing shortage. So we trust nurses with our lives, but not with professional degree status. Help me make it make sense. What do you think? Tell me below and follow me. I'm Sue O'Connell. I'm a commentator, and you can watch me at NBC 10 Boston and youtube.com/NBC10 Boston.
I told y'all to go back to school when you still have time. Yesterday, the Trump administration officially announced that nursing is not considered a professional degree. So what does this mean? It means that graduate nursing students may no longer be eligible for the same type of federal student loan funding or loan forgiveness that other programs are eligible for. Let me break it down. Long story short, it means that if you're trying to go to graduate school for nursing, the cost could rise for you, and you very well may not get federal funding, and you may have to rely on private lenders. So this would not only make pursuing that graduate nursing degree more expensive, but also a little bit more difficult. And if it's expensive and difficult, it is most likely going to deter students from wanting to become a nurse. And this is a greater societal issue because we already have a shortage of nurses across the country. So what is now included as a professional degree? Let me read you the list. Medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, optometry, law, veterinary medicine, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, chiropractic, theology, and clinical psychology. This is a sad day in our education. Nurses are needed just like doctors are needed. But this is also another reason why I told you guys a year ago to make sure you go back to school while you still had the chance and you could still qualify for certain loans. But in my next post for nurses, y'all stay tuned because I'll just give y'all some scholarships that y'all can apply to because it looks like federal student loans may no longer be an option for you, but that's okay because you shouldn't be going to school off student loans anyway when you should be getting that degree for free. Until next time, bye.
President Trump says that nursing is no longer a professional degree, but the question is, why? So in case you haven't heard, a nursing degree is no longer considered a professional degree according to President Trump. And there's actually reasons for it that I had to do a little bit of research on. So I want to touch on why it's being reclassified now and the financial implications it's actually going to have. Now, on the surface, when I first heard this, my immediate thought was, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. So naturally, I questioned it, but then I started to do research on why this would even be a thing. Now, it actually has a lot to do with this guy, the One Big Beautiful Bill. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, there were changes that were made to student loans. Two big ones, actually. The first one is the Graduate Plus loan that's been a part of student loans for years is now being eliminated. And secondly, the maximum amount of debt that a parent can take out with the Parent Plus loan has also been reduced. So you have a graduate loan that's been completely eliminated and a Parent Plus loan where the limits were actually taken down. Now, one of the main reasons for this change is because of the student loan crisis that we're seeing in America. By the time most college students are done with school, they're buried in student loan debt, and a lot of it seems insurmountable. So how exactly do you address it? And that's why the Graduate Plus loan was eliminated and the Parent Plus loan limits were lowered. Because the idea is if we can give less access to student loans, students won't be buried in debt forever. So why then is nursing no longer considered a professional degree? Well, the answer to that is simple. If it's no longer classified as a professional degree, anybody that's going to nursing school has limited access to the government funding they can actually take for going to school. And so, because of that, they're not buried in student loan debt by the time they finish up their nursing degree. Now, the next natural question that comes up is if nursing degrees are no longer considered professional, but you still have to get the degree anyways, and student loan pricing is going to be about the same, how exactly are you supposed to pay for that college education? My suggestion as a former investment banker and student loan consultant would be to take advantage of as much free money as you can. And trust me, I know that sounds cliche, but there are a lot of great resources out there that give students access to free money to go to school. I'll give you one right now. It's called tuitionfundingsources.com. No, I'm not sponsored. They're just a great way for students to pay for school without having to do too much effort and make sure that, well, they don't have to pay that money back. So what are my thoughts about Trump saying that nursing is no longer considered a professional degree? Well, let's just say that I understand the reasoning behind it, but I hope you also provide education behind it, because without access to free money, I'm not sure how students are going to pay for school.
All right, y'all. I mean, look, what do you expect from a president that sounds like a toddler every time he speaks? I mean, you can't expect anything better. The bottom line is, if you want to get into these professions, you're not going to have federal funding anymore. It's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to pay out of pocket. And you can thank Ronald Reagan, because prior to him being president, college was free. And he came along, and that was really to keep us out. It was all about keeping our community out of college. And that's why tuition and all that came about when Ronald Reagan was in office. And they thought, okay, well, if they got to pay, then that would eliminate a lot of our people from going to college. And you see that didn't work. But the bottom line is, y'all, it's going to shift a lot of people into other professions. And nursing already had and still do have a shortage in this country. Don't you think this will just make it worse? I'm just saying. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. I deeply appreciate it. So, we'll come back together again tomorrow to do this again. But in the meantime, if you are looking for some good discounts on hair products, this is the time to run to my store and get it. So, I'm going to be working tonight on things that came in today so they can go out first thing Friday morning. So, everybody, please enjoy the rest of your night, and I will see you tomorrow. Shalom, family.